Hey there, this is Jennie Potter, and welcome to the second season of Self-Sabotage No More, inspired by my newest book, Stuck No More. This season is all about helping you break the loop of being where you don't want to be, of breaking free from the cycle of saying, I'll do it tomorrow, only tomorrow never comes. If you're tired of feeling stuck, constantly putting off your goals, and ready to take real action towards the life you want, this podcast is for you. We'll explore practical strategies to overcome whatever loop you are stuck in and finally start achieving what you've been longing for. For more tools and resources like how-to videos and worksheets related to my books and this podcast, visit jenniepotter.com. Before we get started, I want to make sure you know I'm not trying to diagnose or cure any kind of emotional, physical, or psychological illness. If you feel like you're a danger to yourself or others, please seek help from a qualified professional. All right, let's jump in and continue along the journey to Stuck No More. Aligning to the miraculous with what you speak over your life. So what we say out loud, what we declare is truly how we create. And when we do so with feeling, with action, with movement, with visioning, with God, with faith, with resonance, when we do it in this way, it can be so powerful and so quick. Take a moment and think about what you declare over your life. Like, for example, when you meet someone new and you're connecting and comparing notes, are you describing your life as a hot mess? Are you telling people you're X, you're Y, you're Z? So many times I hear people declaring over their life, I'm fat, I'm broke, I have a weak immune system, I get sick all the time, I'm late all the time, I'm so messy, I never finish anything that I start. There's nothing I can do to change. My life never changes, etc., etc., etc. And so what if you had the thought and you truly believed it with every cell in your body that what you spoke over your life came to fruition? What if? What would you stop saying? How would you stop describing your life? And how would you start describing your life? What would you speak over your life if everything you spoke came to fruition? Now, I had this total epiphany moment. I was reading this Bible. It's like a Bible study Bible, Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Meyer. And I'd never read the Bible before. And I was reading it kind of with new eyes. And I was really in a place of curiosity and trying to understand. Okay. And so someone had recommended this Bible because she does a really good job of explaining the essence or core meaning behind some scripture. And so here I was reading it, and she has these little PowerPoints or power moments where she describes something. And in this power moment, she said, your words have power. She was describing one of the scriptures, and she said, what if you truly believed that every word you spoke out would come to fruition? And I had one of those moments where I thought, what would I speak out? And instantly, in a moment, I blurted out loud, I'm a published author. Now, that was far before I was ever a published author. I'd never published anything. And I kind of surprised myself with that declaration. And this is what we're going to talk about today, is this affirmation, I declare. What are you declaring over your life? So I blurted that out with faith. I mean, I'm telling you, I spoke it out like I knew it was going to come to fruition. I spoke it out with feeling. I spoke it out with this pure, loving energy. I'm a published author. And the very next day, my phone rang, and it was a friend. She said, Jennie, I have a friend who's writing a compilation series. And this was kind of before compilations were really popular, like where like you've got like 15 authors in the same book. And this was kind of pre that. Okay. And it was, how many years ago was this? Probably 7 years ago. I'm not sure, give or take. And so she says, I have this friend. She's an author. She's writing a compilation series. It's inspirational. It's about miracles. And I was wondering if you would be open to writing a chapter. She has one spot left. She needs one more author. And I thought of you. This felt different. And it felt different because what I understood is not just about saying affirmations in the mirror or speaking out your I ams. It's about living differently, speaking over your life in every moment what you desire to be true, as if it's already come into existence, as if it's already true. And I literally was just walking the dogs like 30 minutes ago. I was out walking the dogs and I'm walking them, and my husband and I call them $1 million dogs. And so I was kind of having this whole thought process around declaring and declarations. And I had this thought, would I still walk my dogs if I had millions of dollars in the bank? I just had this thought, random. Okay. And then I thought, yes, I'd still be walking the dogs. So this is $1 million activity. So what are you still doing in your life that you can speak over that's $1 million activity? Like, would you still get up and make your own coffee the way you like it? Would you have someone making your coffee? I'd still be making my own coffee. I'd still be puttering to the kitchen in the early hours with the puppies at my feet, grabbing a cup of coffee and finding a cozy corner to journal and write. $1 million activity. So I would start declaring over any activity that you would keep or still doing. This is something that millionaire Jennie would do, or of course, replace your name. So I love that. I love it when we speak out with faith and feeling and it just comes to fruition. It's so cool when it happens fast. And that's what this whole series, this whole book, Stuck No More, is all about. It's about shifting your vibration exponentially quickly, expedited healing. Okay. This is about shifting how and what you're constantly creating if you're feeling stuck, and changing that vibe so you're experiencing something else and you're getting unstuck. Okay. So one way that people stay stuck is they declare over and over and over their sad story. So I used to do this. I used to be major victim mentality. Okay. I would literally, something crazy, brutal would happen to me. I was always attracting drama in my life. I was probably, how old was I then? 30, 29, 30. And for at least a decade or two, I mean, I don't want to say at 10 years old, but probably from 14 years old on, I was like creating a lot of drama and around a lot of drama, and I had a lot of friends who had a lot of drama. And that didn't change when I moved out of the teen years. I kept attracting friendships, relationships, experiences that were painful and kind of crazy, like in quotes, crazy, like really people were like, what? That happened to you? And I used to tell that story over and over and over again. So my point is, I was declaring over my life crazy, and I was experiencing crazy. Or I talk about in my book as well, declaring broken, experiencing broken, wounded. And so then I read this book by Carolyn Mice, and it's called Why People Don't Heal and How They Can. And the first thing that landed with me, she said, tell your story 3 times. If you have to tell your story of the thing, the woe, the bad thing that happened to you, tell it 3 times and never tell it again. Now, this was very impactful for me because I had been speaking out my wounds over and over and over again. So for any of you that have read Self-Sabotage No More, and a trigger warning here, I'm about to share something very personal that was uncomfortable. When I was 14, I was raped at a party. And that changed everything. It changed the way I thought about myself. It changed the way I spoke about myself. It changed everything. And I used to tell, after I didn't tell anyone when it happened, but then I got to a point where I would just tell everyone, kind of like, I'm effed up because this thing happened to me when I was 14. And I would share it. I would overshare all the time. I would share every bad thing that happened to me. And I'm a good storyteller. And I would have some crazy night or some sabotage experience. And I would then phone every single friend and say, you wouldn't believe what just happened to me, or you wouldn't believe what just happened to my friend. And I would just constantly speak more drama into my life. And so when I read this, Why People Don't Heal, or Why People Don't Heal and How They Can, and she said, tell your story 3 times. Be very discerning about who you tell, why you're telling it. But if you have to tell it 3 times and then don't tell it anymore. And I tell you, I took that advice. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Just a quick note. I want to take a moment to let you know that I have additional free resources and links to my Facebook community available on my website at jenniepotter.com. Now let's get back to getting unstuck and creating the life you're dreaming of. You know, lots of times we read personal growth books or we listen to personal growth podcasts or whatever. You take some of it lands, you let some of it go. I took this advice to heart and I started really thinking about, do I need to share this story? Do I need to tell this story? And slowly but surely, my life started to change. I stopped even telling it once. I started to notice what I didn't like and what kind of story I wanted to tell. And I noticed that I kind of become addicted to the difficult, addicted to the drama. And I wanted that to change. The shift was pivotal for me. And it shifted this way of how I spoke about me. And I started to notice how others spoke about me too. People liked describing me as the drama person. Okay. They wanted me to tell the stories. They're like, oh, tell that story when that, guy you worked with fell off the roof, and I started to be really aware of what I was speaking out. So if there's people in your life that have a lot of drama or always have a sad story to tell, or if you find that you're still telling your sad story, you're still, maybe something brutal happened to you. Maybe you went through bankruptcy. Maybe someone left you and took all your money. Maybe you were betrayed. Maybe you had a rough childhood. Maybe your father beat you. Maybe your mom to this day doesn't encourage you. Maybe you have a best friend who did something terrible to you. Maybe you did something terrible to you. Maybe it's time you stop telling that story, or notice, write down, get it all out. Just like in the last chapter or the last episode, we talked about redefining. Write out that story that you've been telling. So like what happened to me at 14, for example, write out what happened to you. I would even get a timeline and write down, like, what are the pivotal stories I tell about my life? Which ones are negative? And then write out the story, like as you tell it, and then ask yourself, okay, what did I make this mean about me? And then what can I draw from it that is good? Like for me, I drew that I'm very forgiving. I drew that I'm resilient. I drew that I wanted something different from my life. I knew that when it happened to me that I would be able to share it with others one day that would help them, which I now do. And so I would just say, write out those stories and then A, reframe them, and B, stop telling them. Okay. If maybe you moved from town to town to town to town when you were younger, and you've always shared that in a way that was painful, can you look at that? What came of it that was positive is number one. And number two, can you stop telling that and tell something else, right? Could you, instead of saying like, I have a lot of anxiety because my parents moved from town to town to town to town, could you say, I've gained a lot of tools to deal with anxiety because, I had all of these different experiences when I was younger. It made me anxious. And so now I'm courageous walking into a new experience because I have lots of experience doing that, or something like that. And so find a new way to speak your old stories and decide whether you need to tell stories anymore. Who you surround yourself with, your tribe, really does impact your vibe. So make sure you're paying attention to who those storytellers are, the people that phone and they're always complaining, gossiping, negative, sad, drama. Notice that, because if you're spending a lot of time with that, it's going to be a similar vibration that you're giving off, because it's kind of what happens. It's sort of like if you're a cup of hot water and everyone around you is a cup of cold water, it's going to mesh, and then you're kind of going to just be a slightly warmer bowl of water. Okay, but kind of cold. And so if you think about it that way and you want to attract a higher vibe, then you have to start being very aware. What are you listening to? What are you speaking out? Who are you speaking to? What stories are you listening to? What stories are you telling? And so make a list of people who you speak positively to, who speaks positively to you, who cheers for you, who you are cheering for, who encourages you, who wants to grow with you, and stay close to them. And trust me, quality, not quantity, is important here when it comes to friendships. Okay. So be conscious of how you share and who you share with, why you're sharing it, and how many times you're sharing it. And the power of the word is real. Every word is a declaration. So what are you declaring over your life? Now, I have a couple sticking points I want to go over with you just in case you're struggling with any of this. So one is, when you think and speak about something that you don't want and you feel like you can't help it, like maybe that friend who betrayed you, you just keep thinking about that scenario over and over and over, and you can't forgive it or you can't let it go. So what happens when you're broadcasting something that you don't want to broadcast? For example, let's use a really simple example, like you get a bill in the mail, all right? And your first thought is like, I don't even want to open it. And then you open it and you're like, I don't think I have enough. Even if you have enough, you don't want to pay it, okay? So your automatic thought might be something like that you feel like you can't even avoid. I can't afford this. I don't have the money for this. If I pay this, I won't have enough money. I hate bills. And what you're broadcasting when you have those thoughts or speak those things out is, I'm broke, I don't have enough, scarcity, and just a not enough vibe, okay? So what you want to broadcast is, I have more than enough. And here you can use my little hack called thought check. So I want you to think about thought checks as every time you speak out words, you are writing a check. Now that check is either withdrawing from your Vibe account or it's depositing into your Vibe account. So if the Vibe bank account manager were to look at your account, would you have more than enough in the bank account, or would you have an overdraft? And by the way, in this account, you have unlimited overdraft. So every time you say, I don't have enough, you're writing a check and withdrawing from your account, okay? So you're just going further and further into overdraft. The good news is when you start speaking out, I have more than enough, you start depositing very quickly. You can build that balance. And so you can build up your Vibe account so that you've got lots of good vibes in there. So your thoughts feel automatic for a reason. Your brain actually likes automatic thoughts. Your brain actually enjoys automatic thoughts because it saves energy. So what we've got to do, and it goes back to that reprogramming at night when you're falling asleep, we've got to reprogram. Okay, we've got to reprogram those automatic thoughts. And so what you can do is say void, void, void when you have the thought, because you're going to void that check, right? You're voiding the thought check. So you're going to go void, 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 and you're going to write a new check. And that check is going to be a deposit into the Vibe account. Void, void, void. I have more than enough money to pay this bill. Void, void, void. I will get to the point where I pay these bills with ease. Void, void, void. I love the services this bill provides, etc. So for now, just work on having a system in place, which is being aware of your negative thought and then speaking out void, 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 and replacing it with something more powerful. Okay. When things were going on in the world that made travel a little bit more difficult, they hadn't yet put a ban on travel, but they were kind of putting rules in place, but really they were just warning people not to travel. And people were traveling with masks and whatever. And so I got this opportunity to fly to Florida. I won this dinner, and it was with a couple actually who had like kind of a job offer possibility for me. And it was a big deal, dream job for me. And so there were 10 of us being considered for the position, and 3 of us were going to get it. And I really felt like I needed to be there because 9 out of the 10, I was the one. 9 out of the 10 had already really spent time with this couple one way or another, either working for them or in person. And I was the only person who really hadn't spent any time, any face time with them. So I won this opportunity to have dinner with them on a cruise. And I'm like, okay, I'm all in. I got to go. I'm going to wear my mask. I'm not even going to tell anyone I'm going anywhere. I'm just going to jump on a plane, go to the dinner, come back. We're talking like where I live is just above Seattle in Canada, all the way down to Florida, okay? And all the way back. And I'm like, I'm going to do it in 48 hours. So I fly down, go for the dinner. Dinner was awesome. Get a text message, see that the rules for getting back into Canada have changed. And so when I land in Canada, I show them my negative test, but they say, I'm sorry, we don't recognize this test. We're going to hold you in a government facility on federal grounds for the next 14 days in kind of a forced quarantine type situation. So even though I had my test, it wasn't a test that they deemed okay. And so very quickly, I was like hustled into an unmarked van, taken to, it was a hotel. I don't know why they had to call it like a facility. It was so terrifying. But anyway, they took me to a hotel. They greeted me at the door in hazmat suits, handed me a granola bar and a suicide hotline number, and said, here's like a snack for tonight, and you can have food tomorrow. You have to choose now what you want for tomorrow. And I was escorted to this room with this security guard standing outside the door. And so there I am in my room. I'm freaking out. I've been told I had to sign something to say that I wouldn't tell anyone where I was. I wouldn't do any social media posts. They threatened me with $250,000 fine if I left or posted anything on social media. And I called my husband, and I'll tell you right now, I was freaking out. Like, I'm generally pretty cool and calm. And even with my anxiousness, like I kind of hide it well. And I'm like always in my head, like, well, what's the positive thing? What's a good thing that can come from this? Like, I'm okay. I'm alive. Like, I'm not actually sick. Like, but I'm telling you, I felt like I was blind. I was so upset. And I called my husband, and I'm telling him like that I'm going to lose it. I'm telling him like I'm literally about to go like cuckoo cuckoo. And I say as much to my husband, and he says, babe, when I asked you what you wanted for Christmas, this was February. He said, when I asked you what you wanted for Christmas, you said, I just want to be locked away in a hotel room for 5 days or more so that I can write my book. And when he said it, I was stunned because it literally word for word was what I spoke out at Christmas. David asked me, what do you want? And I said, all I want is to be locked in a room in a hotel so that I can write my book. I just want peace and quiet. And when he said that, I suddenly understood the reframe. This was something I had spoken into existence, and I could either embrace it or fight it. I was there. And this was so cool because I pivoted in that moment, and I will always be grateful to my husband for not only remembering those words and reminding me, but also he was like, we're going to be fine. Like, they just ordered out every night. And like, it was nice for the kids to have the one-on-one time with my husband. And I grew so much, and I ended up staying 11 days. Every day they would tell me that the next day I'd probably get out. And every day they kept me another day. And it was so good for me on so many levels. I literally downloaded like a 7-minute app and I started doing push-ups. I've never done push-ups before or since. I just felt like one of those movies where you like shower every day and do the push-ups and the pull-ups. I did not do pull-ups. I learned how to use TikTok. I listened to like so many books. I had my Bible and my journal. I finished writing my devotional. I started studying for my Self-Sabotage No More. Even though I didn't know that at the time, I started taking notes and writing all of these cool ideas that I was learning as I was locked in this room. I couldn't even open a window. And so it was a really cool experience for me. But what I want you to take away from this, I mean, it's always cool to have a huge pivot mindset change. But what I want you to take away from this was I spoke that out and it came into existence. And I did end up reframing, but I probably would have preferred to choose 5 days and not lock myself into a hotel room, but just have 5 quiet days to write. And so that's like a less fun story on why it's important that you don't declare over your life what you don't really want. And so I've talked about this multiple times already in these episodes when I spoke about all I need is a grocery getter, or, just lock me in a room for 5 days or whatever. Like, and you always get more than you wish for. So I got 11 days, not 5. And I'll tell you, I also got rest and had kind of a fun time once I got over the weirdness of it all. Okay. So I want to encourage you from this day forward, be vigilant with your word. Use void when you have those automated thoughts, and ask yourself this question: is this what I want? Do I want to declare this over my life? Like, when you're saying what you don't want, like, I don't want to go on a camping trip unless we have booked sites because I hate that feeling when we don't know where to park at night. And then sure enough, you're on the road trip and you don't know where you're going to stay that night. Do you have those experiences where you're speaking out what you don't want and then it comes true? You can change that. You can change that with one simple step. You can use that void and start voiding the things you don't want and speaking out the things you do want, filling your vibe account. Careful what you declare for. There were so many lessons that I've learned over the years with declaring over my life. Be careful. Be careful what you speak over your life, and everything could transform just from this one affirmation. And so with that, I will let you go until the next episode. Looking forward to seeing you then. Stay tuned. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Stuck No More with Jennie Potter. If you enjoyed this episode, please comment, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast. That helps others find the show so they can get unstuck too. And don't forget, you can find my books, Self-Sabotage No More and Stuck No More, on Amazon, Audible, and the other book platforms. Thanks again for listening, and bye for now.